right. Well, hello, machine tool fans. So this is we're back here at TLC, and we've got some of our old standbys. Our good friend, hello, Steve Lamarca. How are you from AMT?
Hey guys.
Good to see you. We got Cyber Kyle, Dr. Kyle Salibi over there from Georgia Tech. Hey, Kyle.
Hello, great to see you all.
To see you. And we have a new face on here. We got Kat Ross from AMT. Kat,
Hello, hello.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So, like about 80+% of women, I woke up one day and found myself working in manufacturing without a real roadmap to get here. But I've been here for almost 20 years since, spent the first, two-thirds of that in workforce development and education, specifically for manufacturing tech careers and industries. And for the last few years, I've been the community engagement director at AMT, which is kind of a mixed bag, a little bit of business development, a little bit of, just bringing all the different players and communities together. So doing a lot of work with our like-minded associations to just create more opportunities for AMT members, IMTS exhibitors, and it's pretty fun. I have to say, when I woke up found myself in manufacturing, I woke up on the right side of the bed. It was a great twist of fate for me.
I got to tell you, when we said, hey, we're talking about today's topic, which is sort of the skill ceiling in job shops and how to break through it. The team over at AMT said, oh, well, you got to talk to Kat. So they're like, come on board, Kat, and we'll have this conversation. But our last podcast, we were chatting about the fact that, well, where do you find people in these shops, and how we're trying to bring manufacturing back. Well, I shouldn't say bring it back. Yes, bring it back, but we're growing manufacturing. It says, oh, it left, now it's coming back. It has always been around, but now we're growing it. But well, okay, a big plant comes in, and all of a sudden they need a bunch of employees, and okay, maybe they can hire those employees, but they get them from some of the smaller shops, and all of a sudden these smaller shops are looking for people. And so where do you get people? And just before we started, Steve and I were sort of chatting, and he reminded me of how old I am because he said, "Oh yeah, we remember those shops in high school. It was just after the Civil War, I think, when we were talking about those and so forth. But the reality actually is yeah, I mean, we don't have the same pathways, that I would say we had, 30, 40 years ago. But that's okay because I think the technology has changed, and so I think a combination of technology that's out there and what the kids are experiencing, integrated with the interest and so forth, and what we really have available to us, provides some interesting pathways. And many of these, and I'll just be very frank about it, just up front. Many of these, we see a lot of the community colleges or the technical colleges, so the associate's degrees as very nice stepping stones into a career in manufacturing. By the way, whether it's, you do your 2-year degree and then you move over to a 4-year institution like at Georgia Tech, or you actually, as you're taking your classes, you're hired by industry. What we find actually is a lot of the students, they're working on their 2-year degree and they get these great job offers, from industry because they've taken, hey, a semester or two of classes, and they already have such great value add. But what does it really look like, and how do you really put it together in the whole bit? And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But again, what we're not talking about is, let's figure out how to write G code, and let's figure out how to punch paper tape. Which I was talking to somebody the other day about punch and paper tape, very Smithsonian, right? But the reality is how do the kids think about things today, and how do we move forward and sort of make sure we're staying up on the leading edge and make sure all that great manufacturing that is here in the U.S., we've got the right staff to move it forward.
One of my favorite things about IMTS, and of course this is an IMTS year, is
Yeah.
the Smarts Force Student Summit. And Kat, if she is not in charge of it, she plays a really huge role with the Student Summit. And I, just to kick things off, wanted to ask,
Yeah.
what does she see? What's coming up this year, new from previous years? How has the dynamic changed over the last couple shows?
Yeah, well, I've been involved with the Student Summit since 2008. And IMTS launched it in 1998, so we're on the cusp of a big anniversary. So ask me again in 2028. Let's do this in 2 years, and we'll have some very cool things to share. This year, I'd say the biggest change is actually a return to how we ran the Student Summit for 10 years, and that's to say we're moving back to the North Building at McCormick Place, which places this entire arena, like a mini IMTS designed for students and educators. It places us directly below the automation sector of the show, which is a very cool entry spot for the 16,000 students and teachers that I'm expecting to attend over the course of the 6 days. We see these 16,000 students come from, believe it or not, 47 states, or in 2024 we had folks coming from 47 states, everywhere except Oklahoma, one of the Dakotas, and Hawaii. And I'm going to Hawaii, and I'm going to get them this time. That's not true. But it's really exciting and encouraging to see, we're not seeing K through 12 students coming from Florida and California and Texas. They're not getting on planes, but their faculty are and their administrators are. So it's very exciting to see entire school systems identifying IMTS not just as a destination for thousands and thousands of students like we do see from drivable distances, but also for these faculty, having them come because it's an opportunity to talk to industry about, one, their own skills development, because if you don't understand it as an educator, you can't pass that on to your students. Two, to talk about their curriculum, because some of these things are pretty dusty. And this is a great way to kickstart the conversation of what should be on there and get it straight from the source. And of course, the third is an opportunity to see what this technology looks like. And the coolest thing about the Student Summit, the reason why I think it's sort of a fan favorite here at AMT, and it's a place that I always recommend companies send their new staff first when they get to IMTS. Like, if you have new people, send them down to the Student Summit because everything is hands-on, interactive, questions are encouraged, there are no stupid questions, and I'll be honest, I was hired into the manufacturing tech industry on like August 1st, and by the second week of September in 2008, I was at IMTS. And I remember walking along the Grand Concourse and thinking, I am not in Kansas, even close to Kansas anymore. So it can be a little overwhelming and intimidating on on those main show floors if it's your first foray. So the Student Summit is completely designed to peel away those layers of any kind of, overwhelming feelings towards such a massive event. And we've worked with some of the best in class brands for years, for decades in some cases, on building exhibits that students and teachers and anyone can really get their hands on, to code, to program, to operate, to design. And in the best case scenarios, that activity results in something that the student can take home and talk to their parents or their grandmother or their school counselor or their teacher about how interesting and surprisingly easy and rewarding and satisfying an experience was. And perhaps they should start to look at some careers over here. That's kind of the end game goal for us.
Pretty cool, actually. And I was thinking mostly they're students and so forth. But I agree. I mean, in terms of faculty, I mean, one of the things actually that we really don't see is out there is I think faculty, like let's say it's a high school faculty, or even guidance counselors, career counselors, and so forth. They sometimes they just don't they don't see the great opportunities and so forth. I mean, you want to, so by the way, you want to go see some really cool machines and so forth, come to, IMTS, but you got a bunch of robots there too. I mean, kids love robots. And I always talk about the fact, I was just talking with somebody, a colleague of mine, and I can't remember which major OEM that she works with. But I said, yeah, you want to see the most robots anywhere, go to a car plant and you're going to see the most robots anywhere because there's hundreds of them out there.
Yeah,
So
you're
I
not
think,
kidding. I
yeah.
got blessed a couple of years back to get to walk through this the Jefferson North Assembly Plant. They don't call it that anymore, but at Stellantis in
Oh yeah.
Detroit, and there was 900 robots in just one of the buildings there. And I think they don't like to publish those numbers, but it's something like there's like 100 robots per person. Um, no, that's not right. Never mind. I'm not going to talk about that at all. But what to Tom's point that Kat mentioned, I'm actually really excited that they moved the student summit back from the east building to the north building because it's right below the robots. And the other benefit for the students is when they come upstairs, of course, after passing some of the tasty food at McCormick, but they come upstairs and they're right in front of robots and the emerging technology center. So for like the budding minds that are being ushered to the student summit, when they get to come upstairs and see the latest and greatest right in front of them,
Yeah.
they're also right in the center. They're at the hub of IMTS to see everything else. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great opportunity. I
Tom, you raised a good point about the awareness among guidance counselors and like non-faculty at schools, particularly among those high schools, middle schools, to some degree community colleges. Administrators just aren't always very familiar with our industry and the potential that we have to offer, especially to some families in communities where they're just dealing with generation after generation of financial struggles. It can be an absolute game changer, but we spend an entire portion of our marketing campaign leading up to IMTS focusing on superintendents, principals, and other administration level contacts to make sure that they are aware. I saw a awesome program in Alabama, a machine tool technology program out of high school that was there for years and years, get picked apart and auctioned off when the teacher retired. They let it all sit there and gather dust for about 2 years, didn't know what to do with it, and couldn't replace him, so they ended up auctioning off all the equipment, all the machinery, because they couldn't find a second teacher to fill this guy's spot. So the more that we can do, I was just at
Yeah.
the National Community College President Conference in Louisiana last weekend, just spreading the word, particularly among those high level folks who control the budgets. Because they need to know this is not just a very expensive program. They look at that versus like, I don't know, a carpentry program, and they're like, hammers aren't too expensive. Hammers are important, but I'm biased.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense, and actually, I think part of it is you have to turn around and take a look at what the raw material, what the students are using today. I mean, Kyle, I'd love to hear from you because I know you're engaging with a number of high schools and so forth, but they're doing some different stuff out there today, right? I mean, as opposed to just okay, let's go write some G code and so forth.
Yeah, we're starting to move into the space of helping at the K-12 level for a pathway, both to the technical college as well as four-year universities and beyond. But Kat, just like you said, there's a tremendous interest in it right now. It's actually it's awesome to see how many people recognize the need and are actively trying to bring back some of these higher end technologies into the high school specifically. We've even gotten some engagement from the middle school level too. I think Georgia has this match program where any high schooler that meets a certain GPA receives a letter of all the colleges that they're automatically accepted to. They're reserving a spot. These colleges are reserving a spot for them, both technical college as well as for universities. And quite literally, all they have to do is claim that spot. I wish we could do more things like that in the manufacturing, right? Hey, if you get these trainings, you've got an internship, or this company is hiring, or so on and so forth. It's great to see the interest. I think we need to now push it across the finish line, particularly for the skilled trades that are critical to manufacturing.
Yeah, we're talking about and I know Kyle's working with various high schools and technical colleges. So again, in Georgia, the 2-year colleges for for this type of technology are called technical colleges. And the reality though is the kids that are showing up they've done things like 3D printing and so forth. And so if you've done 3D printing, you probably use Tinkercad. Tinkercad is a subset of Fusion, Autodesk Fusion, right? And so the bottom line is they're already spun up on certain areas and so forth. And, it doesn't take much. I mean, especially now with technology, they go from some of the 3D printing concepts to the machining concepts. And we were even talking just before we started, that even picking out tooling and so forth, you can say, hey, here is and this is where AI starts to come into play. Oh, here's my part. Oh, well, here's the recommended tooling, and then we've got standards for tooling and so forth. That sort of that are out there. I'm just trying to think what were they, like ISO 13399 and GTC, where it's just okay, everything is represented. So now instead of flipping through a tooling catalog and trying to figure out what insert goes with what holder and then what machine and Cat 3, Cat 4 or whatever, Cat 5, I don't well, no, those now we're talking internet connections and so forth. But you know what I mean, and so. But in all of that now comes together, and a lot of those details that you did have to worry about in the past are available pretty straightforward, and the students can move forward on a lot of this stuff. Again, there's still some learning to do, but it's a different type of learning. It's a different type of hands-on. And in fact, in some of these, when these kids are doing this, there are local companies who'll say, hey, instead of going to work, flipping burgers or sweeping floors or whatever, we're stocking, shelves in the grocery store, come to work in my local machine shop and we'll give you a little bit more training and so forth and tell you which courses to take at the community colleges or technical colleges. And, now we'll give you a really good salary. And hey, I'll hire you for after school. I'll hire you over the summertime. And when you're done with high school, come on and work for me and, and make, 60, 70, 80K a year as a machinist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a game changer. Not everybody wants that crushing college debt. Some people
Oh, yeah.
want to go to community, and in my opinion, and I am a community college graduate who went on to get a bachelor's degree as well, but I think community college is where workforce development truly happens. It's where entry level, like job ready individuals are exiting every day, and it is a real problem. It's kind of a good problem, but it is a real problem that folks will get a couple of semesters worth of classes under their belt, know just enough to be dangerous, and get hired. And in the best case scenario, the employer that hires them will pay for them to continue their education.
Sure.
We see that a lot, not enough, but that's sort of the perfect
Yeah.
world where they let them complete their certificate or their associate's program while still being on the job as well.
Right. Well, and in fact, what you see there is okay, hey, you take some classes and then you go and you get a job and it's a good paying job and the whole bit, but you want to move on to sort of the next level, and sort of the great managers out there. And I agree with you 100%, Kat. Is if I were a manager and I saw somebody who said, geez, I'd really like to move up, and sort of, go to the next level. Okay, well, here are the types of courses you need to take. Go back, we'll pay for it the whole bit. You take the courses, and let's say you graduate from 3-axis programming to 5-axis programming, or you learn more about metrology and how to use the various systems and so forth. Okay, once you're certified there, we can give you a promotion. We can add a few dollars an hour to your salary, or not to your salary, but to your hourly, and and it's great. But I mean, even mapping it back. So I think a lot of us are familiar with, the Pinewood Derby, right? Where you make the little block of wood and the whole bit. Kyle, we don't have a whole lot of time, but Kyle, I have often thought about, okay, well, gee, what about 3D printing and all that sort of stuff? And I mean, the kids are already doing it, so why carve out a block of wood? I'm not to say that it's not fun and so forth, but what if you added a little bit of spice to this thing? And I just thought about it, but Kyle did it. So you want to talk a little bit about what you might have going on there?
Sure. So we kicked off this program somewhere in the high schools where you took the Pinewood Derby concept, but of course 3D printed the bodies, but also machined the car weights. We wanted to add in CNC machining as early as possible into curriculum that we can. What was interesting, Kat, you made a comment that manufacturing is really a tech job. I really like that comment. The place that we've actually put this program is into the CS classes in high school.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an engineering class here and there, but mostly it's in CS programs. And the teachers are fantastic. They're very adept at moving from a computer science world to a manufacturing. Most of them understand intuitively what's going on behind the scenes of a controller. They can integrate data analytics into manufacturing. It has seemingly been a fantastic fit. But Tom, back to your point, it really is bringing all these different capabilities together. So when we say it's a tech job, yeah, it's the physical side of it, the design, manufacturing, but also understanding the programming and the data analysis as well. I hope we can translate that to real jobs, to the technical colleges, the universities, and then ultimately to the industry. So, Kat, I'd be very curious to hear from your side. What students have you seen go on after the program at AMT? Who has come back to you, right? What stands out?
Oh gosh, we've heard from students who attended, the student summit at IMTS maybe when they were in ninth grade, and now they're working for one of the companies that are exhibiting, or they'll attend in high school and then they'll wind up back in the student summit as a college or university student, but this time they've got their resume and they're looking for an internship or a job after graduation. There is always that sharp contrast between our younger attendees and our college and university level attendees. And this year, I will say we are adding the opportunity for any exhibitor at IMTS, regardless of their participation in the Student Summit. Any exhibitor at IMTS has the opportunity to promote their entry-level jobs and internships to this captive audience of 15, 16,000
Nice.
students that will be coming through this year. So hopefully we can start to funnel, make some connections. I know a lot of these jobs are regional, and of course, this is Chicago, but there are a ton of jobs and opportunities that are remote, and especially such as like in an additive group. So it's a pretty exciting time. It's very exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say definitely, everybody wants, you should go by, the whole workforce development area, the student area, and so forth, see what's going on, and good opportunity for recruiting. And by the way, if you know some people who are teachers, and I'm reaching out to your audience, if you know some teachers and so forth, get some of the high school and junior high teachers, who are teaching us, Kyle pointed out computer science, get them to come down to sort of see what's going on, because what you're going to see is a lot of the tools that are out there now are making it easy to sort of translate from, just pure computer science and programming computer to programming a machine tool or a robot. I mean, something that physically moves. And frankly speaking, I think that that's going to be very important, because you keep hearing about how programming jobs are getting taken away by, by AI and so forth. But the reality is, they're still not programming. It's coming along, and I think it's going to make it more efficient. But I can tell you, CNC programmers and machine tool programmers and so forth, they still have a pretty good job, because there's not just pure programming; it's sort of understanding a little bit more. But to make that leap, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
we work with the Chicago Public Schools Computer Science Division, for instance, which is where all of the FIRST robotics teams funnel through,
yeah,
whether it's FIRST Lego League for the little guys or FIRST Robotics for, high school seniors and whatnot. So there's such a natural synergy between what previously may have felt a degree or two off from our field. It's all just one big tech family now. So get in there. Let's go.
yeah, and and it just does. I mean, it just makes life. And I think, if you're sort of, of kind of my age, and you remember when you would go on a trip, you had to bring your maps with you and sort of figure out how to go to point A to point B. Now, when I land, I bring my phone up, and, and then I click on my calendar, and it tells me where the hotel is or where the meeting is, and, link it over to Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever. And, and then, you get in the car, and you don't have to plug the car in anymore, right? The Wi-Fi connects up, and it just says go. I mean, not too distant future, the thing will just drive you there. And so, I mean, it is amazing, and this is the direction we're going. But the reality is we still need the people, right? I mean, it's not going to be totally automated and so forth. But I think it also fits in with what what a lot of the kids are interested in doing, and the skill sets and the whole bit. It's very high tech and just exciting. So cool. All right. Well, Ken, I'm going to let you sort of close us off today. and just sort of, maybe highlight and, hey, give everybody spun up and tell them, where they should be thinking about going in September. We're now in 2026. The clock is counting down, and we're getting set for that, for IMTS. So we'll give you the final word today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks to the three of you for having me. Go to imts.com/SmartForce to learn about the Student Summit. If you are listening and you are an IMTS exhibitor, we have some opportunities on there for you to get involved. If you are at an education institution or you know someone who attends one or has attended one, pass on the link through your networks, through your community, because there really is a space for everyone in the Student Summit. Registration is free for teachers and students. That is another big feature. And actually, on the day that we are recording this, registration just opened. So today is the day to start signing up. Even if you're not sure how many students you might bring, you can edit that later. Just get in there, save your spot, and we'll see you in September.
Awesome. And I'll just follow on. Is all the stuff we're talking about for the students and so forth, it also makes the experts, the people who have been out in the industry for 20, 30, 40 years, it makes your life easier as well. So make sure you do check out those type of capabilities because, man, oh, man, it's way better than punching tape. All right. Hey, thank you very much for joining us, Kat, Kyle, Steve. Great to see you again. And we'll see you all next month.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.